so we can easily get started. And I'm going to turn my video off for a minute. Welcome, everybody, to UNESCO-UNEVOC's webinar on boosting gender equality in science and technology in TVET. If you made it here today, congratulations for being part of this movement, where we are talking about gender equality and opportunities for improving livelihoods for girls and young boys, as well as women. Today, we are going to focus on gender equality and social inclusion, GESI program, which is a UNESCO-UNEVOC flagship program that focuses on improving outcomes for our TVET learners globally. So we're going to have a full-packed agenda today, 90 minutes of action-packed. As usual, you know that we have very powerful and stellar selection of speakers who are with us today, and they're going to take us through opportunities and challenges, and of course, give us direction on where we need to head and think about when it comes to the issue of gender equality and social inclusion. And just to put you into this conversation, we'd like to see where you're coming from. I already see a lot of you have sent messages on the chat. So we're going to share a short poll just to see where you're coming from and see the kind of representation we have. You can see on the screen, we have two questions. So the first question is, where are you joining us from today? Are you from Africa? Are you from Asia Pacific? Are you from Europe and North America and CIS? Are you from Arab states? Are you from Latin America? Just click one that represents the region where you're joining us from today. Yes, and keep also sending these messages and chat from the chat session. Then the second question is, what is your role in the TVET ecosystem? Are you an educator, that is a teacher or a trainer or an instructor? Are you a policymaker? Are you in management and administration? Are you a student? Are you an NGO representative or international agency representative? Or do you fall in another category that we've not listed here? Just choose one so that we get the dynamics and we can tailor the speaking to examples that fit your background. And as usual, remember we have the Q&A session that is going to be later in this webinar. So if you have any questions that pop up when the webinar is going on, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom function. Add your questions there, and we are going to do our best to respond to the questions as they come in. And without further ado, let's see the results, first of all, who we have. And yeah, we have great representation from Africa, around 44%. Thank you, representatives from Africa, then followed by Asia Pacific, doing quite well. Then we have Europe, around 10%, Arab states 7%, this is great. And Latin America, we have 2%, and this is attributed because of the time zone. So we can see the representation that we have today. And most of you who are joining us today are actually educators, followed by managers and administrators, as well as people who fall in different categories. So I'm thinking this will be policymakers, students, youth, etc., and the bigger public that is joining us today. So thank you so much for joining us. And we want to really keep this entertaining. Send your questions as much as you can. Without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome the head of UNESCO-UNEVOC, Mr. Friedrich Huebler, to welcome everyone today. Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Friedrich.
Yeah, thank you, Priscilla, and good morning, and welcome also from me to the UNESCO-UNEVOC webinar on boosting gender equality in science and technology in TVET. The mission of UNESCO-UNEVOC is to strengthen TVET systems around the world and to promote skills acquisition for all, regardless of their background. And in line with this mission, we are launching a new program today called Gender Equality and Social Inclusion, or GESI. Gender equality is not only a matter of fairness that is enshrined in the Sustainable Development Goals, it is essential for building inclusive and resilient societies. And for this reason, the UNESCO strategy for TVET also calls for transforming TVET systems to promote inclusion, equity, and lifelong learning. But despite global efforts, women and girls still remain underrepresented in STEM-related TVET. Through the GESI program, UNESCO-UNEVOC aims to strengthen institutional capacity, mainstream gender-responsive policies, and create learning environments that reflect the diverse needs of all learners. Our goal is to ensure that girls and women have equal opportunities to acquire the skills and knowledge needed for the jobs of the future. The GESI focal points in UNEVOC centers will serve as champions of gender equality and social inclusion initiatives within the institution. They will lead by example, advocate for systemic change, and inspire colleagues and learners to embrace inclusive practices. And their leadership will be critical in ensuring that the principles discussed today translate into tangible actions that transform TVET systems globally. This webinar serves as the starting point of this mandate, and it aims to raise awareness of the importance of gender-balanced participation in science and technology for sustainable development. We will explore several important topics today. First, we will look at the identification of barriers to girls' and women's participation in STEM-related TVET programs. Second, policies and institutional strategies for promoting gender equality and social inclusion to enable all learners to engage in innovation and digital and green transformation. And third, the role of digitalization and emerging technologies like artificial intelligence in shaping future skill systems. Now, before I conclude, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to all who have been involved in the preparation of this webinar. First, the speakers, Debborah Odenyi from Girl Rising, Rolf Schreuder from the EU STEM Coalition, and Joonas Merikko from Any Advisor. The moderator is a UNEVOC consultant, Anshika Kushwaha, and we have representatives from the UNEVOC network, Mariam Subani from the National Skills University Islamabad, and Aidan Kenny from the Technological University Dublin. There are the UNEVOC centers who nominated GESI focal points to participate in this program, and then of course, the inclusion and youth team and the communications and knowledge management team at UNESCO-UNEVOC that coordinated this event. Finally, I want to thank all of you for being here today and for your engagement in this important dialogue. I can see that we have now more than 160 participants, and I invite all of you to listen actively, engage in the discussions, and apply the knowledge shared by our speakers. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Friedrich, for the insightful opening remarks. My name is Leni Martini, working with Priscilla Gatonye in the team of Inclusion and Youth Employability at UNESCO-UNEVOC. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker who will share about her work on promoting gender equality and empowerment, Ms. Debborah Odenyi. She is the Kenya Country Manager at Girl Rising. Debborah is a passionate educator and a strong advocate for girls' education, leadership, and empowerment. Debborah brings over 30 years of experience in the education sector. She led the accreditation process for the Girl Rising Life Skills and Gender Sensitization Curriculum. Debborah, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you are participating from. When we look at advancing gender equality in STEM for girls, we look at the statistics shared for this webinar, and I would like to mention that and highlight that the statistics show an opportunity gap and not a talent gap. When we work with girls, we realize that most of them lack opportunity to present or do what they like. And so gender equality gaps start quite early, because at Girl Rising, we work across from primary school to secondary school. And so we meet these girls at those two levels. Just a moment. And so working with them, we get to listen to them and get firsthand information about what challenges they meet. And so as well as laying emphasis on the economic and societal importance of bridging this gap. And so ensuring equitable access to STEM and TVET strengthens development, peace, and human rights when women participate fully in technical and entrepreneurial sectors. Economies grow and innovation rises and communities
Debborah?
become stronger and more inclusive.
Debborah,
And so
sorry
this
to
data
interrupt.
shows the urgency for mainstreaming gender in educational institutions, and that's what we have seen work across the programs that we are involved in. Okay. So I was talking about why we need to mainstream gender. It's important because when we talk of mainstreaming gender in matters for TVET system, it's crucial for the work that we do. And so in integrating gender equality into all policies, programs, and budgets is crucial for mainstreaming gender into TVET and also just core institutional functions and not as an afterthought. So gender mainstreaming should not be considered as a second thought when it comes to TVET. We also need to address the needs of girls and boys, as well as women and men, not just considering the girls only because of allyship. We find there's the motivation when both boys and girls are encouraged when it comes to gender. Then strengthening learning outcomes and institutional effectiveness is also critical because when we mainstream gender, we are looking at the outcomes for both boys and girls, and particularly for girls, so that the effectiveness of institutions is actualized.
Please.
Okay. Yeah, so I had talked about mainstreaming gender, why it matters in TVET systems, because gender equality is important to be integrated in all policies, programs, and budgets, as well as core institutional functions, and not just as an afterthought when we are now thinking of inclusivity. And so addressing the needs of both girls and boys, as well as women and men, is important as opposed to just addressing issues of girls and women only. And when we talk of TVET, girls in primary and secondary school. And so mainstreaming will also strengthen learning outcomes and institutional effectiveness, especially when we look at the progression of girls and their educations and what they're looking at for their career pathways. And so understanding why girls are excluded from STEM early is critical because early gender stereotypes affect the way girls advance, especially in issues when it comes to STEM and TVET. Boys are seen as being better at science, and this is a stereotype we hear so much when we get into schools and even communities to work with our life skills and gender sensitization curriculum about ensuring girls have agency, they are confident enough to follow their dreams. They'll always tell you boys are better than science. And it's because those are stories they've had from family, from within community, which makes them excluded from STEM early. So we do not talk of STEM when we get to TVET. We need to start talking about STEM inclusion right from primary school. And so lack of female role models in most communities, in media, in school, generally environments where girls exist is another reason why girls are excluded from STEM early. And sometimes classrooms have bias, especially in technical roles, which would encourage girls to take up STEM subjects. Social norms, like it has been said before, push girls towards feminine careers, conventional ones that we know are usually attracted to mostly by girls. And so structural barriers girls face in TVET. One of those is limited hands-on applied STEM learning. So there is a lot of theory taught in schools, both primary and secondary, for various reasons. And so the lack of applied STEM learning for girls does not expose them early enough to technical subjects. And so that limits their critical thinking, their creativity when it comes to STEM. And then there's the issue of safety, sanitation, and commute challenges. Sometimes girls do not feel safe because most of the TVET institutions in communities, mainly in Kenya, few are actually designed in ways that girls are able to board. And so when they have to travel long distances where they do not feel safe, maybe the commute is long, the sanitation may not support that, sometimes they are discouraged, even by their parents. Fathers would say technical subjects or technical careers are not safe for girls. And so they take that in because then they believe what their parents tell them. Then the digital divide and lack of early technology exposure is another reason why girls are excluded or face exclusion from TVET. We worked on a project in 2 informal settlements in Kibra and in Kawangware in Nairobi, and we were working with students from across primary to secondary school. It was interesting to note that some of the secondary school students had never seen or other worked closely with any technical device apart from maybe a smartphone, but working with maybe a laptop or a desktop, it was not easy for some of them. And so through the partnership with HP and UTIVA, we inculcated into them technical skills, which were really helpful for them. And then there's the confidence gap shaped by environment and usually not by performance. So some of the issues that I have mentioned. And so the key activities to mainstream gender in TVET, we would recommend identifying gaps with disaggregated data. So the data we collect will inform us when and how to intervene, especially when it comes to gender inclusion for STEM, for girls, and in TVET progression as well. And then review of policies, like it had been mentioned, during looking at safety, being intentional about budgeting when it comes to gender issues, looking at curriculum that is favorable, as well as the pedagogy that does not include bias for girls especially, looking at guidance towards their career paths, being encouraged on what career paths to take and encouraging them towards STEM subjects, as well as facilities that enable the STEM teaching in schools, especially primary. Needless to mention the under-resourced schools that may not even have laboratories. For Kenya, we are keen now on the curriculum-based education, where we are going, the curriculum keenly looks at competencies and not exam-oriented as such. It's also important to train teachers on gender-responsive pedagogy. We've seen this over time, teachers changing their attitudes towards girls, towards boys, and how they teach generally in class, how they involve boys and both girls in school in various activities. And then integrate gender into curriculum and teaching, which is also key. I've mentioned about the pedagogy and curriculum as well. And when we have done our assessments, the evaluations, monitored progress, we need to adjust strategies. What works? What does not work? What would we do best to support girls to stay in STEM and finally progress into TVET institutions? Also engage families, communities, industry, and partners. These girls come from families. We need to take note of that. When a father discourages a girl about technical subjects or advancing towards a TVET institution because they feel it is not safe, they need to be sensitized. Communities as well, and even industry partners need to also be on board. And so what works? Looking at evidence and insights, having role models works well and really effective, and mentorship that boosts girls' confidence. Girls just need to be told you're able to, you can. They will have the agency to do it. And when they have support systems, they go for it. And we have seen that in schools and even programs that we have run as Girl Rising. Community engagement shifts norms. When we have gender biases, when communities and families think of the conventional careers only for their girls, when we talk to them about shifting their mindsets and thinking progressive, thinking about involving girls in STEM, it shifts and it brings a huge difference. Having hands-on relevant STEM learning increases interests. So when a school has a laboratory and we talk to girls about STEM, they would be interested. But when you talk to them theoretically, they've never seen a laboratory, they've never seen a workshop or anything that would support hands-on learning, then it would have no interest for them. Then we also need to ensure that environments are safe and supportive so that we retain these girls in institutions like TVET. Opportunities for girls in STEM through TVET. We are looking at emerging opportunities and developing career pathways for them, looking at it from the digital point of view. The green care economy pathways for these girls is key. And just to let them know, sensitize them and inform them of what there is for them and what they can pursue that would be helpful for their career paths. Technical apprenticeship and internship opportunities, usually in communities. I've seen this in Kenya and even East Africa. Mostly boys would be invited to those. Girls would be told to work hard, go to university. Sometimes because of many barriers in communities, they're not even able to complete their school. And so these technical apprenticeship and internship opportunities should also be availed to girls. Looking at partnerships and industries and communities who should collaborate in encouraging girls to get involved into STEM so that they can get through TVET is also key. And encouraging that TVET be a platform to close gender gaps and build skills. So when you admit students in TVET, are we looking at the disaggregated gender when we talk of admission? How many young boys are we admitting? How many young girls are we encouraging? So TVET would also play a key role in ensuring that. And so for recommendations from the work we have seen on the ground as Girl Rising, it is important to integrate foundational STEM education in secondary schools to build pathways into TVET programs. Some parents do not even know TVET institutions are available for their children. They don't. They do not even know much about vocational training. All they know is the conventional colleges that we have, the conventional jobs they have known over time, and that is what they tell their daughters. So we need to have this foundational integration right from school. Let them know that beyond the regular college, beyond university, we have TVET programs that would equally be helpful to their children. Then institutionalizing gender-responsive pedagogy, I have spoken about that also. Investing in safe, inclusive learning environments is key. Strengthening mentorship and career guidance for girls especially, and supporting them, encouraging them to follow that. They will have the agency to do it. Ensuring gender-sensitive budgeting and planning, being very intentional about budgets when we talk about gender inclusivity, and planning for girls, especially when it's about STEM. Scaling partnership to support girls' STEM pathways, like I've talked about, communities, industry, all those players, all the stakeholders need to come on board to support girls when they think of their STEM pathways. And so my call to action, like we always said, Girl Rising, it is just to build. Girls do not lack ability. They have the ability to. They lack opportunity, confidence, representation, and encouragement. And I would call upon all participants, let us build a STEM and TVET systems where every girl can access, participate, and thrive. It is just that simple. Let's include girls right from the very, very beginning of their learning in journey. And so thank you so much for your attention and for having me participate in this webinar. I will share my email and our website link in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Debborah. It is very inspiring to see your slides and to listen to your work with co-rising. And let's also invite all the participants here to join our effort in encouraging not only boys, but also girls into STEM-related TVET courses and careers. Then I would like to invite Mr. Rolf Schreuder, the Director of European Affairs from EU STEM Coalition. Rolf Schreuder works at the intersection of youth engagement, STEM education, and European policy. He supports the EU STEM Coalition in helping countries strengthen their STEM pathways and build practical collaborations between governments, schools, and industry. Rolf is the creator of the STEM mentality model, a framework that helps understand young people's motivations and make STEM education more inclusive. Now, Rolf, please, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, everybody. Lenny, thank you for having me. Good morning, everybody, from Amsterdam, Europe. So it's a nice morning for me, and great to see so many people from all over the world joining this important meeting. Debborah, I'm sorry your screen was not working as you wished. I hope I won't say the same topics actually as we obviously derive from the same kinds of insights. So I want to share the insights we have gathered as a EU STEM Coalition. The EU STEM Coalition is a collaboration of STEM platforms nationally in Europe. So we have about 70 members in over 27 countries, and we share our practices. And these are practices by academia, educators, and societal actors like businesses, STEM centers, maker spaces, all kinds of initiatives. And we try to gather and exchange information and best practices so we could learn from each other and speed up actually the change we all like to see. My personal motivation here is that I'm triggered by the idea that every person, of course, has the right to pursue their own talent and their own desires. And if there are barriers, that doesn't feel right. So for me, my personal goal is to help create a system that allows everybody to pursue their own goals and developments, and regardless of course of background. And I take inspiration from a different area in life. I'm a football coach, and I've seen personally how the perception of football has changed very much. Decades ago, women's football was, well, it was there, but it was not really recognized. And what we have seen the last decades actually is a real cultural shift. So that brings hope also in our very masculine and men-dominated technical or STEM world as sort of cultural element. So is it too complicated? Well, let's take inspiration from women's football maybe and see what has happened there and take also lessons from how that global cultural change actually happened within maybe 20 years. So that gives hope. So we are talking about a science-based big shift. I take my insights here from a study we did last year, which was actually an analysis of existing research. So many points I bring in today are from this report based on many research done. So it's much research topic, and I feel we have maybe a momentum also now to create action and to really make that change happening. So I'm coming from a systemic approach. As a STEM coalition, we feel that you have to have an integrated perspective on all levels that are interplaying in this topic. So the individual, the social, institutional, and system level. I will quickly go through them with the basic insights we gathered. So as also Debborah mentioned, this is not a skills gap, obviously. This is a confidence gap we have seen. Girls perform as well as boys, but feel less welcome. It's an identity and motivational issue we face here. They feel less welcomed and less at home in the world of STEM or TVET. So let's talk about motivation and how the system invites people actually to be part of this world. And then we have to see that boys and girls are in a way different, but not different in motivations. Both can have a sort of impact-driven approach or have the desire to be creative, are curious, are hands-on. But what we see is that many girls are more uncertain. So it's about self-confidence, self-efficacy. Do I believe I can learn the things I need to learn for STEM or TVET? But it also connects to values, and that's interesting. We have seen this type of thinking in Europe emerging. So what can we know and what do we know actually on what young people find meaningful? So if we say, okay, what is meaningful STEM? Obviously, we have to take the perspective of the youth and not place our own motivations there. So we have to listen and try to grasp the motivational profiles of youth. There are some examples. In the Netherlands, we created a model. We called it the STEM mentality model, which depicts 5 profiles of people who are in a different way interested in STEM. So the one is more the maker, the doer, the more practical approach. The other one is very curious on all kinds of questions and is more in a philosophical way interested. So both types, the 5 types are interested in STEM, but in a different way. We've seen a similar model in Sweden now. This is in Swedish, I cannot read it, but here you see a model which you can find. It's 2-dimensional, so it has an axis on idealism or materialism, an interest for STEM high or an interest for STEM low. And then you see the different groups in a different way. And it's not because of the model, but it changes your perspective on the population of youth, and it doesn't divide youth into the 2 sexes, boys or girls. No, we have a more fine-grained approach towards the population. So these are examples, and obviously they're very regional. And all I'm saying here is also in your context, you can think about how to differentiate into different types of motivational profiles. The second level I mentioned is the social level. Of course, it's not only the individual, but its surroundings that creates the context of choices and opportunities. So in all our efforts, we need to take care of also policies and actions that regard families and peers in this effort. And important here is the visibility. Representation, obviously, like in women's football, normalizes the picture and gives a mainstream, as Debborah said, approach as well. So it's normal to make these choices. But we need to obviously educate the social level also in this. The third level we look into is the institutional one, and this is actually maybe the one that is most important in terms of interventions. We see schools as the object of change, and within schools, obviously, the teachers are the most important ones. I'm very pleased that so many teachers are in this room, because you have the key, obviously, in the choice that all these individuals are making, boys and girls. And at least, well, we know it from the European or Western global North perspectives. Societies here still have the stereotypical thinking in themselves. There are some biases towards girls, often not even wanted biases. It's unconscious, but still they're there, and obviously the awareness here plays a very important part. So the teachers have this key to also this issue. But teachers cannot work alone, obviously. So that's why we need the fourth level, the system level. We cannot make this a problem of teachers of schools alone. We need the surroundings of schools to help. And also, so here we have an interplay of individuals, teachers, school management, head teachers, and the head teachers obviously are in the context of policy making. And there we see that many of these projects are and interventions are project run, short-term initiatives. Let's do something about it. We make a brochure, we make a project. No, a big cultural shift that we needs a long-term perspective. That also means we need a long-term financial commitments to change things. And that means we need aligned ecosystems. Businesses, local governments, regional governments, national governments all have to align their efforts in the same direction. So that's an important task, of course, of the bigger networks we have, like UNESCO, like the STEM Coalition, to push for this long-term vision and long-term commitments. So for me, a systemic shift is possible on a cultural level. Remember the football analogy. We can change this approach, but we need to do it collectively. And this poses obviously a huge responsibility also on people that strive for this collective effort. That's us. So schools cannot do this alone. Gender equity is not only about societies or economies. It's about people, individuals, persons. And that's I think also for many people a driver, a motivation to get into this space. So if we keep on pushing on the abstract things like societies, we miss out on the personal motivation to make change in personal lives of girls. At least that's for me an important point. And of course, as said, I'm so happy that so many people step in this game. Our networks drive this transformation. A key takeaway also in this respect, I believe inclusive outcomes can only genuinely be achieved with inclusive processes. So what is so important is not talk about or for the girls or the women, but actually with the young people. So we need to involve them in the processes. I'm happy. I thought there was one student in the room today or two. We need you to step in and also help the system change. So also from our perspective, if we really want to change, we need agents, and the best agents for change are young people. And obviously we need businesses and civil society to do their part as well. So I think this is my my contribution for today for the discussion. I hope we can have a fruitful interaction later on. You can reach me online via email if you like. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of your webinar. I'm looking forward to Debborah's presentation and the next ones. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rolf. I really like the examples of challenging stereotypes using the football match, and I also like the way you're looking at pathways to explore the inclusive TVET from different levels. So key takeaways that we need to listen to you, young people, the students, and also to teachers who are the frontliners of our effort in making TVET more inclusive, especially in STEM-related courses and careers. Now, also following up from that, I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Joonas Merikko, who will share about his work on applying AI to career guidance and mentorship, another solution to overcome barriers to mainstream gender in TVET. Joonas is currently serving as Chief Product Officer at Any Advisor, developing a student support platform, and also as a postdoctoral researcher in the research group on AI for Society and Education at the University of Helsinki, conducting research on AI in education and well-being. So Joonas, the screen is yours, please.
Thank you, Lenny, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Merikko, and I today want to talk about how we apply AI to career guidance and specifically how to do it inclusively. So usually when we talk about artificial intelligence in technical and vocational education and training, the conversation quickly turns around one word, that is efficiency. We talk about things like predicting student success, identifying who will drop out, or by algorithmically matching students' current skills to labor market needs. And often the goal is to achieve more with fewer resources. So in my previous life as a mathematician and data scientist, I used to love this kind of approach. I viewed education as an optimization problem. For example, in the context of career guidance, we could just see what the student is good at and then extrapolate a future based on that. But if you use AI to predict the future based on the past data, we are locking the history. And I think this is a trap when it comes to inclusion. And as a thought experiment, you can think, if we feed an AI 20 years of historical data from STEM programs and employment statistics, what kind of patterns does it see? I organized my presentation across the philosophy, science, policy, and practice around applying AI to career guidance, offering a few examples of each area. So let's start with philosophy. Educational philosopher Biesta argues that education has three functions, and often the most obvious one is qualification, providing knowledge and skills. And this is also the easiest of these to measure. Second, there's socialization, becoming part of community and tradition. And third, and most important for guidance, is subjectification, becoming a unique individual with your own agency. And the danger is that we end up valuing what is measured, like grades and graduation rates, rather than engaging in measurement of we actually value, for example, the student agency and student growth. As I mentioned, I have a background in mathematics. However, I started my PhD research in the Faculty of Educational Sciences. But coming from a mathematics background, I brought that mindset with me. My first efforts were around predicting student graduation. This is a part of my scientific history that I'm not particularly proud about, but it was a good lesson. So we used administrative data to predict student graduation and came up with a formula for a probability of a certain student to graduate. The problem with this approach is that it uses variables such as student gender and the field of education, and based on historical data, makes assumptions and locks in the history. I quickly moved toward student-driven analytics. Here's an example of curricular concept maps that help students visualize their own learning paths and connections among those, fostering reflection and agency for the students rather than prediction. We saw many students using these also to reflect on their vocational agency and vocational identity, what kind of futures they could see themselves in. A very interesting development has been the rise of generative AI. Looking back at 2022, the idea of a chatbot providing academic advising was considered a science fiction thought experiment. Only a few years later, this year, it's becoming everyday reality in several schools. In this pilot project we conducted in Catalonia, we actually found out some interesting things regarding what students like to discuss with an AI agent. While the data showed that students discussed things like study planning, they even more engaged on life plans, career, and identity, the topics of this presentation. However, the research on using AI for career guidance is still rather scarce. One example is this study by Gatonye and colleagues on a tool that provided career and study recommendations for users. In their conclusion of this research was that future efforts for using AI for career guidance should facilitate self-reflection, not just offer recommendations, but provoke reflection on possible futures. We are currently conducting a literature review regarding AI and career guidance and counseling. This work is led by Milja Manninen, a PhD researcher at the University of Jyväskylä, Finland. We're still very early in the process, but we can already see some insights from the data. So current literature heavily is emphasized on AI for prediction and skills matching. And there seems to be a noticeable lack of AI models that are based on career guidance theories. Regarding the policy part, I actually started my own career with an internship at the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture, and that has had an effect on my thinking ever since. Currently in Finland, we are defining the vision for education in the year 2045, so 20 years from now. I've had the privilege to be involved in this work with the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture, and we started almost exactly 2 years ago. And now that we're almost finished with the vision, I can share some key elements here. In the vision, we take an ecological perspective on learning. The goal of a meaningful life for each learning is, of course, central. But it's also surrounded by the society. So the goal is also to learn how to live together in the society and expanding to the planetary context, how to protect the life on Earth. There are 3 key themes that anchor this vision. The first, Sivistys or Bildung. I couldn't find a proper English translation, but it's not only the knowledge and skills, but also the will to use one's competence for the common good. Second, meaning, connecting personal importance with what serves the community. And third, hope, here meaning the agency to change the future, not just adapt to it. When we combine the ecological model and these key themes, we can then look at the role of AI in this vision. And we think that technology should not provide ready-made answers, but it should help students to see their life as a part of a larger narrative and help them explore alternative futures. So in a sense, supporting students' own agency. Finally, let's look at the practice, how to actually build this kind of AI. In the ULA project, we built an AI agent to boost employment in green transition sectors. So we co-designed an AI agent together with 2 career coaches. So our goal was to encode their professional knowledge into the AI agent. we first define the interaction style. It should be empathetic, it should be friendly, youthful, and be fitting for an instant messaging format. And then to prevent the AI from hallucinating, we restricted it to 40 verified resources that it can use. Then we, together with the career coaches, we encoded professional guidance protocols, including, for example, values clarification, personality test, etc., into the AI. And last, critically, we added the guardrails. So if student shows any signs of distress, learning difficulties, financial issues, then the AI escalates to a human career coach. Together, these form the system prompt for the AI agent. The result was quite massive, 1,606 word length prompt, about 8 pages of text of defining how the AI should work. Then to actually deploy this AI agent in practice for users, we contacted recent graduates from TVET programs via SMS. So we offered them a low threshold opportunity to engage in discussion with the AI agent. Then we had another AI monitoring this conversation between the graduates and the AI agent to monitor for quality and safety. This pilot project is currently ongoing, and we got the first user feedback just last week. So we see that students appreciate the immediacy of the tool, and even those who didn't need help at the moment, they appreciated the check-in. However, it's also noteworthy that the discussion with an AI is quite a divisive topic, and not everyone is willing to interact with AI in these kind of topics. To summarize my presentation, an inclusive AI does not reproduce the past, but opens possibilities, especially for learners historically excluded from STEM and TVET pathways. Let's stop building AI that tells students what they can be, and instead let's start building AI that helps them explore who they could be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joonas. It's a very powerful end message. Let's say I explore what they could do. So we are really happy to having you here sharing a very, now we can see the complicated process behind the test. Then you translate it into a very simplified message for the students that help them exploring the career paths in the future. We see this AI on career guidance as a very promising practices in the future of TVET. So thank you, Joonas. Now, I would like to kindly invite all panelists to the screen, as we will now have a panel discussion moderated by our consultant, Ms. Anshika Kushwaha. Anshika Kushwaha is a workforce development and TVET specialist with over a decade of experience supporting disadvantaged communities. She is currently based in Toronto, Canada. Anshika operates her own consulting company specializing in skills development policy and programming. So, Anshika, I'm pleased to hand the floor to you for the session.
Thank you so much, Lenny. And a big thank you and shout out to all our 3 esteemed panelists. I think I definitely have learned so much, and so much enthusiasm has peeped in me to do more systems level thinking, inspired by Rolf, that none of these barriers, none of these challenges can be solved by an individual or just one institutions, but all of us need to come together as people, as institutions, as funders, as policymakers, even as students who should be right at the center of designing inclusive TVET programs. So thank you so much for that. I have a couple of questions that are bubbling in my head, but I would also request our audience to drop in questions they're curious to learn from our panelists in the Q&A, and I will pick up just in a moment. But before we start with my questions, I just wanted to say that what stood out for me today was that a couple of things. One is that it's not a confidence gap, it's a skills gap. And this confidence is perpetuated by the society, by institutions, by our stereotypes and thinking. And if TVET and the formal education system can start to think about it in a more sort of systems level, then these are challenges that then we can overcome as a society. Second is listen to young people. I think listening to young people and assessing their needs is extremely important. And I think with the new generation, the Gen Z being so much on social media, being so aware, being big advocates for change, I think it's important that we listen to young girls in different regions and different areas and make sure that we are addressing their specific needs and not giving them one cookie cutter approach or one thing that we have in our toolbox that we've been using for many, many years. So listening and doing that needs assessment is important. And that is where career guidance and career counseling comes in, right? We need to be able to use tools like AI, but I will say in brackets carefully, consciously, ethically informed, to be able to assess the needs of our girls and women, to be able to guide them to informed career pathways. The other one was, I think I loved the football analogy, and the Indian women's cricket team also just won the World Cup, and it has created a huge momentum in the country. I sit in Canada, but I can already feel the energy and the palpitation that everybody in the country is having, and how they're pushing their daughters and girls to go out and pursue sports, which they thought before was not really a sport for men. So I think cultural influences play a huge part in influencing our perceptions, influencing the perception of the community and the girls themselves. So those were some things that really resonated with me. But I'm curious about a couple of things, and I'll start with Rolf. I know you said that systems thinking is important, and systems thinking needs a coordinated approach for many players to come together, and it also takes a long time to happen. Especially when you're measuring data, measuring systems output or systemic things is not very easy to capture. It definitely requires a long-term horizon of 5 to 10 years. But as policymakers, as funders, as people who are designing and tracking some of the TVET and STEM programming, I'm curious to learn what are some of the indicators that you would suggest that TVET institutions, trainers to capture, keeping in mind some immediate outcomes, immediate indicators, but also thinking large systems level and not getting fixated just by increased participation of women in 2 years, in 3 years, but really at different levels of government, policymakers, TVET trainers. What are some of the indicators or in terms of data points should we think when it comes to tracking systems change?
Wow, yeah, it's a huge question because we are talking of so many levels. So the first thing I would say is to translate this big effort into smaller portions and maybe use different types of indicators for the different levels. As said, I believe this is not only an issue of economic reasoning for society. We need talent, in terms of the talent pipeline for businesses to fill up their vacancies. Well, that's one part of the equation. So you can have KPIs on that track, but it's also about development of persons, of individuals which is the interest of teachers. As Joonas also pointed out, the role of education is not solely producing talent for the labor market. No, it's more than that. So for teachers, I would say they will react and are triggered by different types of KPIs or data points in that respect. But if you add them all together, you get a system approach. So that's the one thing. And the other one I want to add here is maybe to start thinking in terms of tipping points. We know, of course, from literature and other social and also in the gender studies, that change happens after a certain tipping point has arrived. So that's about 20-30% of a population with a minority kind of profile can flip the perspective and the perception of a trade or a sports or whatever. So it's not necessary to get to 100%. It may be necessary to get to the first 20% or the first 30%, and then the system or the perception might flip. So those are the things that come to mind for your question.
I think that's a solid takeaway for us as TVET practitioners, is to focus on that first 20% or the first early movers, like we say in some marketing languages. And then the system can self-adopt and self-automate. But the real focus is to push and have that momentum started on. So thank you so much. I can take up one question from the audience. Let me see. Sorry, 1 second. Yes, there is one question from Jorge Salazar Marmol. Jorge is asking, what would be a specific actionable step to combat sexism in spaces like Latin America and improve the gender equity processes in TVET? Additionally, how can we adapt our institutions to fully support and welcome non-binary students? So although he's asking from a Latin American context, I would urge any of the panelists, if you'd like to take this question on, how do you combat sexism and how do you make sure that you are able to support non-binary students in TVET, in STEM TVET? And this question is by Jorge. Would anyone like to take it? Joonas, Debborah, Rolf?
Well, the first reaction, of course, is you need agents to set norms culturally. Role models, male role models in this respect, educating a society on acceptable behavior or not. So that has to do with norm setting in a cultural way, but maybe also in of course, institutional way. So this has to be an interplay of cultural norms backed by legal norms as well. But that's a broad, maybe not actionable recommendation right now, but to start communicating different norms by role models in society. Football plays, well, football is on my mind now, but for instance, that could be helpful.
Debborah,
and
Joonas,
maybe I could just add that depending on the context, because in some contexts, those are not issues we discuss in educational institutions, but inculcating into them gender aspects early enough, right from family, right from community, when they join school, when that is done intentionally and early, depending on the context, not just Latin America, because then it affects any other place. He's asking the question for the many represented here. So starting it early according to context, what is acceptable, what a community or institution or family feels is right, doing what is acceptable within those communities, and even by the law, early enough, so that both boys and girls grow up knowing what is acceptable, what is not, when it comes to gender inclusivity and gender sensitization. Yeah.
And when it comes to non-binary question, there are also many very practical things that we've seen the introduction of gender-neutral restrooms, for example, in campuses that can have a huge effect in that sense.
Thank you. And thank you, Jorge, for that very important critical question. And I think the GESI program that is getting kickstarted with this webinar also is going to look at some of these inclusive ways, pedagogy or curriculum, or looking at mindset of educators, trainers, or people who are at least in the ambit of our control and in our system. How do we work with them to remove some of these biases and stereotypes, to call out these unconscious bias which leads to racism? And we will also have these great examples that Joonas mentioned, like a gender-neutral restroom. I think it starts with these very basic signals that people see and feel welcomed when they enter a training institute and they have a gender-neutral a restroom to use. They feel welcomed, and those are some of the signs and changes in classroom practices that we hope to see with this GESI program. I can take, I think, Lenny, do I have 2 more minutes? I can take one more question.
Yes, please. Yes, sure.
Okay, so there is one question from Nitin Kumar, and Priscilla has already answered a little bit on that, but his question is, how can TVET institutions partner with industries to ensure girls have equal access to internships and job placements? And I think, Debborah, you had mentioned in the beginning that girls do not have exposure to practical training, do not know how does the industry or the workshop look like, do not know what the working environment is. And some of these confidence issues also start early on because of the stereotypes. So how do we work as TVET practitioners? How do we work with industry to respond to gender inclusive internships or job placements and make sure they get that first exposure to what the actual job could look like? So Debborah, I'm putting you on spot if you don't mind to help us with this question.
Yes, that's fine. And it doesn't start with industry only. So when these girls are in school, we look at their admission and enrollment into their educational institutions. Are we keen on disaggregated data? Because then that will tell us how many girls are enrolled in school, how many are progressing on from high school from primary transitioning to high school. And that is now when we start to think of now what next. We start to talk to them about guidance, about their career aspirations, how this will be influenced. We are now emphasizing on the stereotype, not just allowing them to have the conventional jobs, And so when we talk of vocational training, we're talking of TVET, we look at industry. So where are they moving to? So there should be that connection between high school and industry. And so what do they want? What are their needs? And so they should also encourage girls to transition from primary to high school in the STEM field. So when they are transitioning to college or to TVET institutions, industry already has encouraged that. And so when we talk of role models, do we have persons or women from these particular industries we are talking about coming to high school to speak to these girls about transitioning, about their career? Are we also addressing the gender bias when we are admitting and enrolling these students into TVET institutions from high school and even the industry itself? You'll find some companies would prefer the men and not women. So are we integrating gender into all our institutions so that the girls feel welcome, they feel safe, they feel they have the agency to do what they would like to do when it comes to STEM, and there's no discrimination to that. So it actually starts from school as we advance to secondary, then to TVET, and we now bring how can industry help us? So this collaboration has to be the collaboration between industry and academia. Then that will work for the girls. Thank you.
Thank you, Debborah. Joonas, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, one thing I've seen quite a practical thing is having these speeches from industry representatives in classrooms, and this has been quite hard to arrange when going physically into the classroom because it's quite a lot of work to be done. But now that we have these Zooms and teleconferences, it's quite easy to arrange, like for example, a 10-minute presentation about your career in the classroom. So that's an area about where I've seen very much progress.
Thank you, Ines. I have a comment from Annie Mutsami that I want to read out. I think it's really insightful. She says, in my institution, we have a well-established daycare where trainees with babies bring their babies for care as the young mothers attend to the training session. They report back at their convenience to breastfeed their babies. This has ensured continued training and improved pass rate among our young mothers. I feel this is an important, it highlights to a very critical gap in our society and in the way early childcare and daycare programming is done for mothers. We all know that women face a lot of challenges entering the labor market, entering the workforce post maternity, which is because there is lack of access of these daycare centers, and not even just lack of access, but unaffordable daycare centers. So I found this point very interesting on how do we ensure more women and girls can get out of their homes and still feel like they're able to fulfill their responsibilities. This is a part, this is an essential, motherhood is an essential part of their lives, and taking care of the children gives them comfort and gives them the ease that I can continue to do my training and my child is taken care of and I can be accessible to the child. So I felt that this is a great point when it comes to thinking about how do we take these actionable steps to make TVET inclusive for women. So thank you, Annie, for that wonderful comment. I can take one more question from the audience.
And Anshika, my apologies, but we really need to go to the next item in the agenda.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much. I am very, very pleased with these presentations. I'm walking back with insights and enthusiasm to, in my own little ways, in my own little world, in my own TVET training centers and people that I work with, I'm able to influence individually, because when we talk about these issues, at the end of the day, it is people who are making all of these big institutions, big funders, big policymakers, big TVET training institutes. So if we as people can take a little bit ownership on making TVET inclusive, I think we'll be able to see progress drop by drop. So thank you so much today for your insights and for your time. And thank you, everybody, all the questions and all the insights that were shared in the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anshika, and our panelists for the insightful panel discussions and the Q&A sessions. We received many questions, as you can see in the Q&A box, which we managed to answer some during the webinar, and I'm happy also to see the enthusiasm of our online audience on this topic. Thank you. But our apologies that we cannot answer them all during this webinar, but please visit our website to learn more about our work and publication. Now, I'm pleased to take you toward the last item on the agenda, which is the official launch of the UNESCO-UNEVOC Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Program. Now, let me just quickly share my screen. Sorry.
We can see it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Yes. As I said, I'm very happy to take you to the launch of this program, the GESI Gender Equality and Social Inclusion program from UNESCO-UNEVOC. Wait, let me just quickly arrange my things here. Yeah, as highlighted by our previous speaker, mainstreaming gender equality and social inclusion in STEM-related TVET is a huge task. It requires involvement from as many stakeholders as possible. Gender equality is everyone's business and responsibility. In this case, UNESCO-UNEVOC relies on its UNEVOC network to improve gender equality and inclusion in all aspects of TVET, from policy design to classroom practice and transitioning to the world of work. One of the findings from our publication states that measures of learner outcomes of girls and women in STEM-related TVET subjects are almost entirely absent from the global and country-level data. Gaps in performance data make it hard to understand and effectively address gender disparities in STEM-related TVET. Therefore, included in the objectives of this GESI program is to develop systematic measurement and reporting of GESI-related institutional progress to better understand and address the challenges that girls and women are facing to access and complete TVET programs and to be able to continue in STEM-related careers. Our goal is to ensure that girls and women be active players in the green and digital transformation. Last month in October, we distributed the call to the first batch of UNEVOC centers, which are TVET providers and universities and research centers. We asked them to nominate their staff members, one male and one female, to become the GESI focal points for their institutions. Now we are pleased to share that we received nomination from 32 institutions in 29 countries across all regions: Africa, Arab states, Asia Pacific, Europe, CIS, and North America, and Latin America and the Caribbean. These global representations ensures that the initiatives that we are currently developing accommodate challenges and needs in diverse contexts. Starting February next year, the GESI focal points will be involved in a blended learning program on relevant topics, including gender-responsive pedagogy that we hope to finish by April 2026. By the end of the learning session, we expect that GESI focal points will gain practical knowledge and tools to plan and implement GESI strategies at their institutions. The GESI focal points in UNEVOC centers will championing the integration of gender-responsive pedagogy, the implementation of social inclusion strategies, encouraging girls' participation in STEM-related TVET, and strengthen career guidance system to empower all learners to transition successfully into the workforce. So here are some relevant resources already available online on UNEVOC website. I will also share the links on the chat. There are more guidelines, toolkits, and promising practices relevant to gender equality and social inclusion on our website. And there will be more after the GESI program concluded next year. And now I'm pleased to warmly invite representatives from UNEVOC network institutions who have been nominated as GESI focal points to share their insights and expectations for this program. First, we will have Dr. Mariam Subhani from the National Skills University, Islamabad, Pakistan, and then followed by Dr. Aidan Kenny from the Technological University, Dublin, Ireland. Dr. Subhani, I see you.
Yes.
Please,
Can you
the
hear
floor
me?
is yours. Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you very much, and greetings to all the esteemed fellows from all over the world. I'm Dr. Mariam Subhani, and I'm educator and working as an assistant professor at National Skills University, Islamabad, Pakistan, which is also a UNEVOC center. So I'm very privileged to join this informative and eye-opening session, which focuses on the mainstreaming gender equality and inclusion in all aspects of the technical and vocational education. So I would like to highlight a few of the pressing challenges in my region in Pakistan and in much of the Asia. So the current literacy rate in Pakistan is 60%. But when we segregate it to the male and female percentage, so the male literacy rate is 68%, while the female literacy rate is 50.8%. So there's a notable gender gap. And when it comes to the STEM subjects and the technical subjects, this gap increases even more. So I'll give you an example from my institution. which is the National Skills University. And here we focus on the technical education and the skills-based education. So we have different engineering technology programs like the civil engineering technology, mechanical engineering technology, and electrical engineering technology. But the majority of the faculty is male. And even if we look at the number of male and female students, that continues to be male dominant. In fact, in most of our batches of the civil engineering technology program and the mechanical engineering technology program, we have no female student at all. So the male and female ratio is stagnant, and we're not improving, we're not moving towards an improvement in the gender equality in STEM and technical education fields. So now let's explore a few of the reasons behind this gap in my region. So the first of all, what I feel is the typical stereotypes in our society. Many families still perceive that the STEM and technical fields are male domains and special culture. They also think that the females should be homemakers, and they should, even if they opt for fields, they should opt for the fields that are not very challenging mentally and physically, and they are comparatively safer. So this is also a second point that I feel, that we have the mobility and safety barriers. Many girls want to enroll in technical programs but cannot travel alone. They need a male family member to escort them to the technical institutions. And for them, education is not just an academic decision. It is a negotiation with family, transport, and societal norms. And the parents and families, they also play an important role in their decision when they have to choose their careers. They pressurize them, they influence their decisions that they should opt for teaching or some home-based work rather than some technical and field-based work. So as they have this transport issue as well, and they have this safety issues as well, because majority of our industries and organizations are male dominant, so they may face harassment. So that is the main, challenge in our region. And then there's also lack of female role models. Although Pakistan has produced exceptional women in science and technology, the representation of women faculty and technical instructors in TVET remains low. So without visible role models, girls struggle to imagine themselves in technical careers. There's a fear of being the only girl in an organization. And then girls and young women from marginalized communities, such as the communities which are facing poverty or disability, or then we have very common early marriages for girls in our society, especially in the rural areas, which is the majority of Pakistan. So the launch of this program, I think, is very timely and essential. I also recently participated in the STEM faculty development program in the United Kingdom. And it opened my eyes to how powerful institutional support and inclusive policies can be. And it showed me what it is possible when gender equality is not just encouraged, but designed into the system, into the curriculum. So from the GESI program, I hope to gain gender-responsive teaching strategies, pedagogies that promote equitable learning outcomes, and encourage girls' participation in the technical and STEM fields. Then I'm also looking forward to learn how institutions can systematically integrate gender equality into policies, into curricula, and into teacher training. That how can we provide a safe environment for female students? Like some said that we have daycares, and we can provide we can make policies for the female students that they can work in a safer environment. So and what I feel is many girls don't lack potential, they lack the encouragement, the fear of being the only girl. So we need global connections to share what works and what does not. And how can we change the mindset of our local people here in Pakistan that they let their females, their daughters, step into the technical fields? And in closing, I believe that achieving gender equality is about creating an ecosystem where every learner feels safe, supported, and able to imagine a future in technical fields. And thank you once again for this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to working together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mariam Subhani. Now I would like to hand the floor over to Dr. Aidan Kenny. Please, the floor is yours.
you can hear me. Okay. Okay, thanks very much. I'd like to thank UNESCO-UNEVOC for organising this webinar today and for organising the programme. We're really looking forward to engaging in the programme. I suppose the key areas that we look at, so I'll give some. I'm head of apprenticeship in the School of Mechanical Engineering in the Technological University Dublin. So we cover all of the engineering apprenticeships, but we're in the university. We cover construction apprenticeship, automotive apprenticeship, and others. We cover the full range of apprenticeships in Ireland. However, there's specific barriers to female participation in apprenticeship that we're quite concerned about. So, for example, less than 4% of apprentices are females. And this is quite worrying because apprenticeships offer quality career paths for young people into the workplace. So we've looked at barriers. What are the key barriers? Why is this happening? We've traced it back through working backwards through second level education, primary education, looking at the curriculum, looking at attitudes in school, looking at resources that schools may have, then looking at the social factors, looking at guardians and parents and so forth, and their understanding of apprenticeships and technical vocational education programs. And then the cultural barriers as well. So we've identified, and I suppose I would rather like to highlight, because I agree, and there's some excellent presentations by colleagues, really good research. I'd like to hear more about that and engage with some of the colleagues later on. But I suppose what we asked ourselves, well, what can we do as a school of mechanical engineering? What can we do to increase and enhance the number of female participation in apprenticeship, in engineering apprenticeships? So we started from basics. We run information sessions for parents. So we invite parents into the university. We show them what apprenticeships are. We show them what apprenticeships do. They meet apprentices. And we emphasize at these sessions that apprenticeships are open to men and women equally. Females can do any apprenticeship. There's no apprenticeship that we have in Ireland that a female can't do. They can do bricklaying. They can do metal fabrication. They can do automotives. There's no physical difference there that stops females from participating in apprenticeships in an Irish context. So we encourage parents to look at them. We also bring employers in to show that there is a quality career path, that apprentices are treated well, that there is a salary scale, and there is a career. And there's some basic items that were mentioned earlier on that are really important. So for employers, when we engage with employers, we ask employers, have you got proper toilet facilities for females, and particularly for young women? And the big employers have really made great improvements in that area. So that's one thing. So that's information for parents and guardians. Then we focus on guidance counsellors. So guidance counsellors have to understand the system. They have to understand how you become an apprentice and the value of becoming an apprentice. So we run separate sessions for that. Then we also go to primary schools and we run switch-on apprenticeship programs for young pupils. And these are for children under 12. So we run carpentry, we run bricklaying, we make special projects that young children can use. Tools and materials belong to the apprenticeship areas, and they engage at that primary school level. So we bring them into the university and we run these programs with them. Then we run Try a Trade events. There's one on today for second level students. So they come in, they're a bit older, and they do more advanced practical work. So we introduce them to the practical work of apprenticeship. And then we run an access to apprenticeship program. And this is for young people who leave school and want to become apprenticeship. It's a 12-week structured employment activation program where they taste different apprenticeships and do employment skills, team leadership skills, communication skills, and get a level 6 continuous professional development certificate from the university, and then get work placements with employers to become apprentices, and we stay engaged with them. Finally, we have two other really important programs. One is a female network for apprentices. So if females become apprentices, well, where's the network? How can they get support? So if we have a female electrician and a female carpenter, they're in a group of 16 men. So we link and create linkages and create female network and support for these apprentices. And that's a really important initiative by a colleague here, Jennifer Bourne, in the university. And we also have mentoring engagement and run by a colleague, Leslie Shoemaker. And that's where we get mentors from industry and employment who are females to come in and talk to students or apprentices about their experiences of how they develop their career path and linkages and networks. So, I mean, it's quite positive, I suppose. I'd like to end at that. I know there's a lot of barriers. I know there's a lot of obstacles that we have to overcome, but I think education at the different levels working together, and I think that's a crucial point that was made by Debborah earlier on, the connectiveness and connecting primary, secondary and employers together with social groups as well. That's really important, that interconnectedness is a way to do this. We can't do it on our own. We can have active interventions, but we need to engage with the broader community. So I suppose they're the kind of areas that we have in the university at the moment. We're really interested in sharing what we do, but above all, learning from the expertise and experience of other cultures, other members of UNESCO-UNEVOC. And I think that global reach is really important to gain a broader understanding and to develop new ways and new interventions and new ways of working with young people. So I think, I hope I didn't run over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Aiden Kenny, and also Dr. Mariam Subhani for your insights. We are looking forward to working together with you in the GESI program and later share the result with the public audience. And now we arrive at the end of our webinar, but before we close, on behalf of UNESCO-UNEVOC, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all the speakers for sharing their expertise and inspiring us with concrete examples and strategies. Thank you also to Anshika for moderating the interesting discussion today. Thank you for our KMIT colleagues for your amazing support. And thank you all of our online audience today for staying with us until the end of this webinar. Let's make the TVET systems more inclusive, equitable, and impactful for all learners. Thank you and wish you all a wonderful week. For your information, we will share the presentation and the recording on the web page that you can access later. And please feel free to share it with other friends, colleagues, teachers, trainers. Yes.